Welcome back. You've just tuned into Women's AM. I'm Hassana, and this morning I'm joined by Sister Ayan, Sister Nusra, and of course our special guest today is Sister Naadiyah Constant. Alhamdulillah, we're discussing a really interesting topic today about post-conversion blues, and I'm sure you get asked this question a lot. But Sister, how did you come to Islam?
Well, to cut a long story short, basically a friend of mine just said to me one day, it was a guy, he said, I can't talk to you anymore because I've become Muslim. So I said, Muslim, what's this Muslim? What I did is literally I just bought a book and read up about this beautiful religion, and it was like my heart was open. It was so easy to understand, all those things that I felt I had been missing in my life. The answers were all there for me.
Well, it's always incredible to hear stories like that. And of course, we're going to be moving on to her views, where today we're discussing post-conversion blues. Britain's 2011 census indicated that Islam was the fastest growing religion, with the Muslim population increasing from 1.5 million to 2.7 million in 2011. This makes it the second largest religion in Wales and England. Well, despite the good news in the increase of people converting to Islam, some may find the euphoric feeling of conversion waning, as they don't always receive the support that they need. In some cases, converts can feel isolated and pressured, which could lead them to question their decision to convert to Islam. Well, it's definitely a really, really interesting topic. Sister Naadiyah, let's come to you first. When we talk about post-conversion blues, what do we mean?
Okay, for me, it's that at the beginning, when you become Muslim, you're embraced, you hugged, kissed, by sisters, you've been given gifts, phone numbers have been exchanged, and then you go home and you have this feeling of, okay, now what? How do I leave my life that I knew behind? What is my future going to entail? It's kind of like being chucked in at the deep end of a pool, and you just got to try and work your way up to the top, up to the surface of the water, really.
That's a really, really interesting analogy. And of course, we'd love to hear your thoughts on this discussion, so please do join in. The number will be appearing on your screens throughout this segment, inshallah. Sister Nusra, Sister Naadiyah raised some really interesting comments there. What kind of issues do you think converts face?
Well, one of the issues, actually, I do think that converts face could be the adaptation of the dress code, the Islamic prescribed dress code, the hijab and the jilbab. For many people, wearing the hijab, the khimar as it is, and the outer garment cloak, the jilbab, is something that they aren't particularly used to. And particularly when we live in a society where covering up a lot to this extent is not encouraged, to say the least, due to the sexualization of our society, we find that there is always a barrier and always there are hardships that are incurred because of that. And along with the visibility, there are issues of discrimination that we do incur because we choose to dress like this. And this is something that not only converts face, but even born Muslims face this as well. Because we choose to identify openly as Muslim by adhering to the dress code, there is the experience of Islamophobia that may manifest in different ways. So we have Muslim women being unsuccessful in employment because of this, and there has been research from the University of Bristol by Dr. Nabil Khattab, who actually, when he was addressing in the annual conference in Glasgow in 2015, he talked about how Muslim women are 70% less likely to find employment, and the key factor in this was our hijab. And he was quoted as saying they wear the hijab or other religious symbols which makes them more visible and as such exposed to greater discrimination. So yes, even in terms of my own experiences, I recently incurred Islamophobia. A man called me a terrorist, and another incident was where children actually made fun of me, and to make it worse, their parents encouraged this. So these are among the issues that we do have to deal with, but we shouldn't look at it as this is something that's our fault because of our choice. Rather, we shouldn't look at it that way. We should look at it in the sense of the fact that many people have now used television as a means of gaining their information about Islam. By watching TV a lot, it's increased people's passiveness. So people's ability to critically think about what the information they're given is something that contributes to that. Then you've got family issues as well, which inshallah Nadia will talk about as well, family and friends who may distance themselves or pressure us to conform to secular liberal values that may go against.
Yeah, but I think another difficulty converts tend to face is isolation. Like you mentioned just in the beginning, that, you know, when you become Muslim, after that initial, you know, sort of warmth and welcome, you don't really hear much from anyone after that. And I think we forget that as Muslims, we have a duty to look after, you know, our Muslim brothers and sisters, especially when they're new Muslims, that we have to be there for them to teach them the basics that we know and we kind of take for granted having that knowledge. So in terms of, you know, how to make wudu, perform salah, you know, where to go for if you need advice, just generally that sort of person to help guide you and support you in that new stage of your life, because essentially it's a transformation. So you kind of need help going from A to B, and we don't tend to see a lot of that in our community. And I think another thing that we see, especially when it comes to sisters who are new Muslims, is that people want to marry them off as soon as possible. They don't wait for them to actually know how they know themselves as a Muslim, to get to know Islam a lot more, to practice it a lot more, to have a better understanding of it. And sometimes, with my experience, what I've seen, some sisters ended up being married to abusive men because they were told that, oh, now that you're Muslim, you need to be married because you can't be on your own. And it's totally erroneous, and I think sometimes you do get sisters who fall into that trap, as well as the fact that sometimes people put in a lot of cultural issues that don't necessarily exist within Islam, and they kind of impose that upon, you know, the new Muslims and say, oh no, you've got to do this or you can't do that, without explaining to them why that is. So I think, yeah, it's...
Definitely. You do have that issue of where you have to separate people's culture from actually what is your religion. But also an issue that I had to face was, you know, telling my friends and family, you know, I've become Muslim, and I had to reassure them that I haven't gone mad. Like, don't think I've gone mad, or, you know, I remember my mum being quite concerned, you know, with what's going on in the media. She was quite concerned, you know, have I been brainwashed? You know, but I had to tell her, you know, Mum, it's okay. I've found peace at last. You know, this is for me, and you have to then go to your friends. You know, for example, you may have gone to visit your favourite restaurant, but realised you can't eat here anymore because it's not halal. So, you know, it's all that you have to sort out. It's a lot of changes, a lot of little small things that you never thought about that end up...
There's a name change issue as well. It's something I know with some of my family members as well. They do still call me by my name, particularly on my mother's side of the family, they do call me by my name, Emily. That's actually my name, my first name, Emily. So there is that kind of issues with identity, but I generally identify as Nusrat, though. Yeah.
I think it's really interesting. I mean, you know, I've kind of had some experiences of some of my friends who have become a Muslim, and I remember we went to, I went with one of my friends to a mosque, and the first thing the Imam said to her was, well, what's your name going to be now? And she was kind of really taken aback, and I was taken aback as well, because obviously a name is something that we identify ourselves with, and to suddenly be told, hang on, you can't have the name that you've always had for the whole of your life, suddenly you have to be called something else. That can be quite difficult.
I think there's that misunderstanding, isn't it, that if you're Muslim, you have to have a Muslim name, but what's a Muslim name really? I think Islam tells us that as long as you have a name with a good meaning, then you can keep your name. I mean, it's not like the Sahabas all of a sudden changed their names, or the Prophet changed his name because he was then Muslim. It's, you know, come on, we've got to get back to the Sunnah. We have to look at how things were, and we come up with these really strange ideas.
There's more important things to be teaching reverts than a new name, or stop plucking your eyebrows, or, you know, stop listening to music. There's more important foundations that you need to, that we need to teach them.
We'll be touching on. We do have a sister joining us on the line. We have Sister Fatima, who's calling from Hounslow. Assalamu alaikum, sister.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, sisters. I just wanted to say assalamu alaikum to all of yourselves. And sisters, I wanted to basically, you know, regarding, because myself, I'm a born Muslim, but I've just recently started practicing myself as well. So inshallah, you know, like, it's not only like reverts that have like the problem as well, it's like born Muslims as well. So when they do come, when they start practicing, even themselves, they do feel isolated as well, because where a lot of sisters know the deen and everything, you know, some of obviously born Muslims as well, they haven't been brought up with the background of obviously praying and, you know, even basic, you know, like surahs to recite when you're praying. They haven't been, you know, taught that as well. So it's actually both, you know, reverts and born Muslims that do tend to come back onto the deen as well. And another thing as well I wanted to mention quickly, regarding the getting married to straight away, being married off. Basically, you know, because obviously our Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he practiced that. You know, he married into women that was obviously just came to Islam. You know, it's just the problem is some of the brothers, you know, tend to come with their culture. That's the problem. So we have to try and differentiate, you know, getting married off straight away, you know. But
absolutely.
Really interesting comments there.
I agree with the sister there. If I can just clarify what when I was talking about the marriage thing, it's not that there's something wrong with marriage, but I think that a lot of the sisters lack the knowledge in terms of what their rights are and what the rights of their husbands are when it comes to marriage, and their rights are not met. And sometimes they do fall into the trap of being with abusive men who take advantage of them because of that lack of knowledge. So I think, I'm sorry if I didn't make that clear the first time or if it was misunderstood, but that's what I meant.
I think Sister Fatima made an interesting point there about the fact that sometimes born Muslims can feel this way too. We talked about some of the issues there. Sister Naadiyah, did you encounter anyone who came across some of the things that we're talking about, or from your own personal experience?
Yeah, from my own experience, and like the sister did mention, it's for both converts and those that are born Muslim and start practicing. You do come across great difficulty. I know through just speaking to sisters that I know, born Muslims, for example, they're all of a sudden their family think, oh, are you more righteous than me now you've gone back to Islam. The stories that I've heard are heartbreaking. You know, sisters are being thrown out from their homes, but there are charities out there such as Solace or the National Zakat Foundation that do help people that are in great difficulty like that.
Absolutely. I mean, I think that, you know, sometimes it is that kind of lack of information, and it's really interesting to hear definitely people's ideas and thoughts on this. And I think it's important that we do have conversations about this, because by opening up that forum, we're actually enabling, you know, reverts and born Muslims to kind of feel part of the community, which is essentially what, you know, what this is all about, isn't it? Well, we are going to be going for a short break. We've had an insightful discussion so far, but stay where you are. We'll be back after the break. Just before we go, here's a reminder of this week's competition.